Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back for the second time this week to the Star Wars Underworld Podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, rumors, and discussion. I know it's weird saying weekly after saying it's the second time this week, but that's what we are. Just, sometimes we'll throw in an extra show when merited, like this week, because, on Thursday, on the regular show, we talked about Tales of the Jedi, all 6 episodes, but that meant we didn't have time to talk about Andor Season 1, Episode 8, Narkina 5, written by Beau Willimont and directed by Toby Haynes. So much to get into in this episode. A great irony of the Empire searching for Cassian, only for him to already be in jail. A certain irony lost on all the Imperial characters. But we'll get into that and so much more here tonight on this special weekend edition of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. First, though, introductions are in order. In case you're new to the show, you've forgotten who we are. That can happen. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, he's the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, I'm having a serious case of deja vu here. I just can't quite. It just feels like I did this exact thing just a couple of days ago. It's real weird. I don't.
Oh,
cliffhanger!
What
is it? What is it like?
So much.
Ben,
Did I cut out? Did I cut out there?
You did.
You did cut out.
It was fine before the show. I'm here like 10 minutes before the show. No problems. And then it starts.
This is the earliest ever we've done one of these. Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules. This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben.
Yeah, just keep dancing. Keep dancing.
What a way to find out my Ethernet cable's not plugged in properly. Wow.
Yeah, Ben. So before the show, we found out Ben's microphone wasn't plugged in properly. Now we find out his Ethernet cable's not plugged in properly. This is how you know it's not a Thursday, because we're just not ready. Just not ready.
But Ben, yeah, Andor. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. Through whatever technical limitations there may be. Also with us, as always, from the Raeside, it's Hannah Raeside.
G'day there. It is great to be back for the second time this week. Again, lots of discussion to be had. Andor, very, very interesting, very tension-filled episode, and almost like a 50-minute long panic attack from Cassian Andor. But it makes sense. I can understand why he's pretty nervous about now. But yeah, can't wait to get into it. Great to be here.
Yeah, lots and lots to get into there. And also joining us this week from That Geek Podcast, it's Catherine Kneen. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Hello. Yes, I'm super excited to be here talking about Andor, the best thing ever. The bestest ever.
Yeah. Catherine, for those of you that don't know, is probably the biggest Cassian Andor fan out there. So before we dive into this episode so far, you've given us a little sense of how you feel about the show, Catherine, but give us your overall feelings on Andor 8 episodes in.
Give it all the awards. Like, it's the best. it's the best show that there ever has been. And not just Star Wars show, like just show, period. It's so good. It has action, adventure, spies, tension, just, oh my God, so much tension, so much nerdy, like, the ISB meetings, the backstabbing, the really snarky talking to each other. Oh my God. And yeah, you're right. Panic attacks the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So safe to say you like it.
Can I just say that going into this show, I didn't know how I would feel about it because, I mean, obviously I was excited about it. It's Star Wars. But, it was a different kind of Star Wars show from the get-go. You could tell that. And I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about it. Even a couple episodes in, you heard my comments on this podcast. I wasn't totally sold on it right from the get-go. But I was genuinely concerned, like almost to stress about how Catherine might think of this show. I knew how much you were anticipating.
That's the ultimate opinion.
It's going to be devastating if she doesn't like it. Like, if there's one person in the world can like it, like, I don't have to like it. Just make her love it, okay? Please.
Just make sure.
It's really important to me.
Yes. Well, yeah, those first episodes, I was so nervous, you're right, about whether I would like it. It's so nerve-wracking going into something, wanting it to be good so badly.
Right.
But then it is.
Good. Good. I mean, I imagine you watching that first episode like Hutch at the end of Fanboy sitting there. What if it sucks? What if the show sucks? And thankfully, it doesn't.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So we will talk about Narkina 5, the 8th episode of Andor, in just a moment. But first, couple of reminders as always. Punch the subscribe button, Chewy. If you're not subscribed to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows, do that. Do that now. Stop watching and do it. Actually, you don't even have to stop watching. The button is there. You can press it while you keep watching or listening. Subscribe. If you want to contribute financially during the show, you can super chat with us. Send in some comments via super chat, and we'll get to them at the end of the discussion. Or you can become a channel member and join our ridiculous clone squadron. We'll give you a number. It's weird, but for some reason, that's what we've decided how it should be. And also, if you want to keep the discussion going outside of the podcast, join the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord server. You just have to ask Ben for the key to enter, because apparently that's how it works. I don't really understand it, but that's how it works.
So keys to the kingdom.
Ben has the keys to the kingdom, so do that.
Sure.
Join the Discord, and if you're listening to this on a platform that allows you to review it, make sure you review the show. 5 stars is always most appreciated. 4 stars is pretty good. 3, that's when we start to enter shaky territory.
That'd be great.
Unless it's an out of 10 situation, in which case don't give 6. Give more than 6. There we go. That's the plugs. That's how we're going to do the plugs. Since Chris isn't here, we're going to do them like that. All right. Let's get into things. Let's talk about Narkina 5. As I said, written by Beau Willimont, directed by Toby Haynes. We'll start how we always do. Go around the table, give some initial impressions on the episode. And Ben, as always, we're going to throw it to you first.
Naturally, I would expect nothing less. Okay, so Narkina 5 is, I think, another home run with Andor. It just continues to build on itself. Not like, I'm not going to say it's like the strongest episode yet, because I think, there is some really strong episodes. That's not how this show is designed. It's not designed to like continue to build in every episode. There's more action and there's more intensity. It's, we're starting on a new arc. We're starting into, this is going back to Aldhani. This is the beginning of something. We can see that already. We know there's going to be a prison break. He can't be in there for 6 years, okay? He can't, okay? 5 years, he's got to be somewhere, okay? He has an appointment. He has a previously appointment that he's got to go to.
That's a very kind way of describing death. Yeah, I've got an appointment in 5 years.
But I've got a thing. So he's got to get out of there. When Melshi's in there, he's got to get out too. So we know something's happening. It's just coming back to this kind of ground level, looking at kind of catching up with everyone and going to this weird place. And yeah, freaking Diego Luna again, still just is amazing. And just the amount of like how real his reaction is to just wandering around going like, just like a blank stare in his face. Like, yeah, that would be me too. Knowingly, like I technically did a lot of things wrong, but according to them, I didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, I'm 6 years in this hellhole. Like, it's just amazing acting. Some of the best acting, I think, in Star Wars ever, between Forrest Whitaker and good old Luthen Rail, and just great.
Yeah. Lots of characters in this one too. That's what's nice about this episode is it sort of brings in everybody that we've been following. It kind of makes their way back into the story in this episode, and they also have time to introduce us to a couple of new characters as well, which is fun. Hannah, over to you. Your thoughts on episode 8 of Andor?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this episode. And throughout the season, in our breakdowns we've had here, I've had some up and down thoughts about certain episodes, but oddly, this one I really, really connected with and really was intrigued, really deeply intrigued by. So I really enjoyed watching it, and I totally forgot. I'm pretty sure it was announced Andy Serkis was going to be in Andor or be acting in Star Wars that isn't Snoke. I'm pretty sure that was announced at some point, but I
didn't catch that at all. So this is a big surprise for me.
How did you? I swear. I think it was like ages ago, months and months ago, and then. But I loved his character, and I love his introduction into live action Star Wars like this, and I don't know. It's kind of funny not to see him in a mocap suit being some weird looking alien something, but it's awesome to see his like true acting skills and yeah, like what Ben was just saying, like all the different characters like coming in together. It's a big kind of pot, and we get to see Ferrix a little bit again, and yeah, I'm digging where this is going. It's going somewhere very good.
Nice, yeah. So you said something there, Hannah, and it made me realize something. Ben, Chris, and I have been podcasting together for a very long time. And even though Chris isn't here, when you said something, I knew exactly what he would say if he were here, which is when you said, it's nice to see Andy Serkis not as Snoke. I heard in the back of my head this little voice go, or is he? Or is he?
The ghost of Chris.
Yeah. And so
that's what you would say.
In honor of that, and in honor of anybody who's thinking the same thing, I've got my Your Snoke Theory Sucks t-shirt on, which I have to move the mic to properly.
God. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yes. Bringing us back to the old days when Snoke theories were the #1 clickbait thing out there, as opposed to, in Star Wars, as opposed to just, good old-fashioned racism, which it is now. So
that's too real. That's honest, but true.
Yeah. So, Catherine, I'm sorry that you have to follow that up, but your thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I mean, it's been the longest so far, but it's it's over. I want more. Mm-hmm. Every episode I'm left with that feeling of wanting more, which how much more can you ask from an episode of television? Is you're left wanting more. And you're right that now we're seeing all the different strands of stories and characters that Cassian has either directly or indirectly influenced starting to come together. All these story lines that were set up either episode 1 or episode 4 coming together, and God, it's just so good. And we're so invested in all of those characters. I know their motivation. I know that who they are. It's just so well set up. And yet we all are going, there's going to be a prison break. But we don't know how. We don't know when. And really everything else, I'm holding my breath going, what's going to happen next? It's for, a quote-unquote show that where we know where it's going to end, so it's the point of watching it. Because I've heard that. Yet you don't know where it's going or what's going to happen. It's amazing.
Yes, yeah. It's like it's been said. Like what I think the real strength of this episode is it is bringing the stories together. Everything, it sort of felt like we kind of forgot about Ferrix for a little while there through episodes 4 through 6. And there have been some episodes where Mon Mothma and Lutheran and Saw Gerrera have felt a little bit off to the side, and their missions have been a little bit nebulous, and we haven't quite known everything that's going on there. This episode manages to balance everything pretty much perfectly, where I feel like I got enough from Cassian's story, I got enough from Ferrix, I got enough from Lutheran and Mon Mothma, that everything sort of felt like, this is the show finally hitting its stride. Not that I haven't thought it's been great up until this point, but this is the show finally bringing everything together and setting us on the trajectory to the back half of the season, and setting us to wherever season 1 is going to end, because everything is coming together, but also kind of falling apart too, which is a nice sort of way of telling the story. Let's start by talking about Cassian. It is Andor after all. Let's start with his introduction to this jail, his new life in prison. And Hannah, I'll throw this to you. What did you make of life in prison for poor old Cassian Andor in this episode?
Yeah, I found it a really well done couple of scenes, and I think just the kind of the layout of this prison, where it's like a workers' prison, and this whole idea that like they're making this production line they have to be, and like that's how you get something good, or a reward for what is it, like tasting your food is like the reward. Right. Like it
what
does.
A life.
Yeah, like what a life, and how boxed that is. And just everything that happened in that prison was so symbolic of just the nature of what the Empire is. Their sleeping quarters is just a hole in a wall, and here's your tube of water, here's your tube of food. Like, it's just so dehumanizing. And I think because by this point, like, obviously we love Cassian from Rogue One, and we love that character, and then we've gotten to know him so well up until now through these episodes. Like, it just you really feel for him, and you go, he really doesn't deserve this. Like, he shouldn't be in there. And I love this whole prison setup. It's not just like, oh yeah, like he's locked up now. It's like, oh, it's like this. It's a bit more interesting the way the guards acted, and how it's not the guards like enforcing everything. It's like the manager who is a prisoner. Like, it's just such an interesting setup. But the big question I had with this whole prison format is, I think they're making things, I don't know if this is mentioned, but I feel like they're making things for the Death Star. I feel like the parts they're making is structural things, maybe for the Death Star, or maybe just, maybe for bigger military ships, Star Destroyers and things. But, I felt like maybe that's how they do it. Like, they have to build this giant thing in space. They're going to need thousands, millions of people working to make parts for it. So I don't know if that'll be an idea that comes up later on.
It certainly would make sense. It would be very on brand for the Empire.
Yeah.
What little we know about like the Death Star's construction is like, okay, well, they work the Geonosians to death, and then they poisoned their planet so nobody can live there anymore. So who next? Who do we go to next? Well, prisoners. We got all these guys locked up. We could arbitrarily change the number of days that they're stuck living in this prison. And yeah, let's turn it into the sickest form of the Olympics imaginable, where they're competing against each other.
It's so weird, yeah.
I love it when Andy Serkis lays it all out. He's like, you're competing against all the other tables. I'm competing against all the other floors. And the way he says, we're playing. And then Cassian calls him out as like, playing. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's how you have to look at it if you're going to survive. But otherwise, it's pretty horrific. And speaking of horrific, the electrocution floors.
Oh yeah, forgot to mention that.
As soon as they had everybody step onto that floor, and you kept seeing all those close-up shots on people's feet, I'm like, oh, this is not gonna go well. There's gonna be something horrible is about to happen through this floor. And credit to all of those actors for being able to pretend like they were being electrocuted in the most horrific way possible, especially Diego, the way he's like contorting like his
twisted,
body.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what the hell is going on there? It's brutal. It's horrible. Yeah. Catherine, what about you? What'd you think of Cassian's stint in the prison thus far?
So you could see on Cassian's face the moment in the transport when he was asked to take or told to take his shoes off, he was like, oh, okay, this is different. And, that sense of vulnerability, that from that moment. And then, walking in, going, this is different from, his previous prison experience. It's so different, such an alien environment, I guess, or to him. And you're right. That called what he put his body through. Oh my God, I don't want to see it again. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a feeling that over the next 2 episodes, we're going to see that at least 1 or 2 more times. Going to see everybody go through that. Although, it's said that it happens more than once in the episode, but they, I think this is a good bit of restraint from the filmmakers of showing it once. And so now it's in our brain, so they don't have to show it over and over again. We know, we've been through that sequence. We know what it's like to watch it and through that experience it. So now we can just imagine it from here on out instead of having to see it over and over again. And in a way, I think that kind of makes it more powerful because the first time has that real shock value to it. Pun not intended.
Literally. Haha.
But
zing.
But all subsequent times would be, I think, less impactful, seeing as we've already seen it once. Ben, let's get to your thoughts on the Imperial prison experience.
Yeah, so I mean, I loved Diego's performance. I loved Cassian's reaction to this because it feels like up until this point he's been wrestling with the whole idea of rebelling. And, he's kind of gotten into this. He didn't want any part of it. Then he kind of got into Aldhani, and maybe he was in on it. Maybe he cared about it. Maybe he didn't. Now he is like in this up to his neck, and he can't get out of this in this horrible situation. He knows to survive this, he's going to have to fight back. And, and he wanted this, he got the money and he got away. He's going to go live on the beach planet and forget about his troubles. And now things couldn't be more worse. I love this for his character, that that when he comes out the other side, he's going to be a lot closer to the Cassian than we know in Rogue One at the end of this arc, which is really exciting because, this whole kind of ambivalent Cassian that, hasn't been really caring about the cause that much has been a bit of a, bit surprising, at least to me, in regards to, where this character came from. But now he's in it, and just the whole concept of the prison. Like, I knew something was up from the moment someone mentioned way back when the trailer was out that all these people in these like white jumpsuits are barefoot. I'm like, oh boy, this is not going to be good. Like, it's just walking around barefoot, in a strange place, just kind of like freaks me out anyway. It's just kind of like, it's just like I don't.
It's so vulnerable.
What's like
so vulnerable.
Well, I don't want to make this comparison, but like, you remember Captain Marvel? There's one fight scene where like Brie Larson is like fighting people and she doesn't have shoes on. That scene always makes me like super uncomfortable because I'm like, God, you can step on something. You're on an alien ship.
Ben, have you ever seen Die Hard?
Oh, well, I mean, that's the worst.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's, you're gonna torture yourself really if you haven't.
No, I saw that. I saw Die Hard as a little kid. That scarred me for life.
Okay. So I think we've just figured out where this fear comes from.
This is the trigger point here. That's where it goes back to.
Nice, thanks guys, thanks for that. The fact that it's level 1 of 3, like this will all be a memory, and blah 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 blah, and it's just great. And I like all of his prison buddies. I like we got Melshi in there. Really freaking cool to have Andy Serkis back at Star Wars, not in a mocap suit, but actually acting. Like, the guy, I think, almost gets shortchanged sometimes because he's the mocap guy. Like, the dude can act. Everything else. Like, there's so many other roles he's been in that he just kills every one of them.
Yeah, I remember seeing Andy Serkis. I think this was in the lead up to, it must have been to The Last Jedi. I think the cast was on like Jimmy Kimmel or something, and whoever the host was asked him, "Oh, what's it like playing a motion capture character versus a regular thing?" And Andy Serkis answered it. He just had this like exasperated look on his face of like, it's acting. It's the same thing. I don't know how else to explain this to you guys, but for me, it's a character and I'm acting. It doesn't matter if I'm in a costume or with dots on my face.
So good.
It's just it's character. But you mentioned Melshi, Ben. There's a nice cameo. There's one I wasn't expecting. There's one I wasn't thinking. We had you Lauren last week, and now we have Melshi this week. Kind of bringing out kind of the C tier characters, but giving them kind of prominent moments in this series.
And also, I think this episode seems to even more signal we're getting closer to Rogue One. We're seeing more Rogue One characters. We not only get Melshi, we get Saw Gerrera in this episode, kind of signaling, okay, the team is coming together. All these people that will eventually converge in Rogue One are starting to kind of show up. Just really cool. I love, Duncan Powell is, I think, a really kind of underrated actor. He didn't get a whole lot to do in Rogue One, but like Melshi is a great character, I think, and he gets a lot, he's very memorable in that movie. So it's good that they're like giving a little bit of a intro and a little bit of a little origin story for him. It's great.
Yeah, these shows have the opportunity to take characters that had real minor roles in the movies or the other shows even, and flesh them out a little bit. And it's something that in some ways I'm a little bit surprised we don't see more of. Sometimes it feels like if a character is stuck in whatever level of role they had in their original thing. So if you're sort of a 3-tier character in the movie, then when you show up in a show, you're going to be a 3-tier character again. Like I felt like that's sort of what kept happening to Mon Mothma until this show, that she would always show up and be just kind of there to say some kind of wisdom line, and then that was it. It wasn't until Andor came along that they're like, no, we're going to elevate you to second or third tier, a first or second tier character, and maybe Melshi will get his due in the next couple of episodes, and we'll bring together a little mini Rebel Alliance, like you're saying, Ben.
And I have to mention that little group of on the table that Cassian is on have some of the best Star Wars names. That's great. Was it a Ham? Like really Ham? Like
Ham. Making up for Tim.
Tim Ham.
Ham.
So strange. So good.
Classic Star Wars names. But speaking of that little group, the scene in the place where they all sleep, I'm not sure what to call that. Barracks, I guess. Barracks, maybe.
Yeah.
Wherever they all sleep, the bedrooms. That's when the group kind of gets to corner Cassian and ask him about life on the outside.
That was an odd scene. I'm just going to jump in straight in because can someone explain this scene to me? I can't tell their angle. I can't tell if they're like angry at him or something, because they get angry that he doesn't know when it changed over or something. I can't tell their angle.
They're clearly setting up something in regards to, obviously Cassian he's not only affected his own thing. He's only like kind of congratulations, you played yourself in regards to, he wanted all this. He wanted to stay out of this. He gets a job. He literally changes the galaxy, makes the Empire come down harder on everyone. That causes him to go to prison. But now all these people are suffering because of him. They know because of what happened at Aldhani. This is why their sentences keep changing, and it's all bad on them, and it's whatever. That's going to come back to haunt him because they're going to be like, well, how could you not hear about this thing? That's going to come into play.
They obviously have no news of what's happening in the outside world. So maybe someone has come in that, since PORD has come in with some information, and they're just wanting more information about what it is, what has happened, why were their sentences doubled, what's happened on the outside world. And Cassian, I could imagine, he keeps saying that he was on, he was on a holiday, he was a tourist. And I think of myself when I'm on holidays, I'm not looking at the news. I don't know if the new laws have been passed. So maybe he was just in ignorance of the new laws, but also there's a bit of, I don't want to comment on that, Aldani very much because, he was a part of it and he knows that. So there's that. He doesn't want to say anything, but the other prisoners want to know about what's going on. But I think Melchi in that scene was the ones of going, don't look at the numbers, just head down. But he's the one, I think, of all of his table mates, if there was anyone who's either previously knew about rebellion activities, it would be Melchi. And obviously somehow he and Cassian get out together, and this is the origin story of their friendship and trust, because it was Melchi who went and got Jyn from her prison transport in Rogue One, so they work really well together. Oh yeah, I full on Leo pointed at the screen when Melchi appeared.
I love how they presented him, which is he's just one of the guys. He's just another person. And if you don't know Melchi, if you don't know the actor, you may just pass by. He's just another guy, and maybe you'll watch Rogue One and realize it next time you watch Rogue One. But that's it. I think that's how you do a cameo. That's how you do a proper It's not. Let's not focus on this person. If it was in Rogue One, it would be there would be 10 seconds of just a shot on Melchi. This is Melchi. Hey, did you see Melchi over here?
Right, you'd have him come in doing something that he's known for from the previous thing. So he'd come in. In Rogue One, his entry is he comes in going Halleck, Liana Halleck, and he's looking for Jyn. So you'd have him come in shouting somebody's name. He'd be like Andor, Cassian Andor. And be like, oh, it's that guy. That's what he does. He walks into rooms yelling people's names. That's him.
I saw someone point out the fact that Melchi goes from a prisoner to a liberator in Rogue One, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. That is a nice touch.
I want to get out of here.
Yeah. And then he gets punched in the face.
So that's what it would have been. That's what it would have been in the other version of he just walks to the Cassian. So, do you want to get out of here?
Pop. Just to continue on with the scene with the prisoners, right? I think also, those guys, they want to know what's going on outside, but they also, I think they get angry when Cassian doesn't know because, and there might be a little bit of social commentary here, just in the way we treat, people who are in jail, as nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about them. Nobody knows. People on the outside aren't even aware of the implications of these laws that are being passed.
Oh, where did he go? Where did he go? Oh,
the Empire.
Wow. Did you see that?
What was he saying? What was he saying?
He's in, that's the worst thing. He just right in the middle of a great point.
Oh, there we go.
What the? I genuinely don't know what happened there. We need a Dominic the Star Wars guy song there to
yeah, wow.
After that. And then we just lost Catherine. I think StreamYard is messing up.
Anna, you're next.
Somebody.
I know. I'm gonna hold on to something.
Hold on tight.
Don't leave me.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Melchi. Help.
Melchi. Yeah. Hana Raeside.
Oh my god. This is so chaotic. Wow.
Yeah. I guess we'll Joel in the chat say, Ben, take over.
No, then I'll be next. And StreamYard guys will.
This is so scary.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Are we all back?
In business.
Yeah. I think like I said, I think something's up with StreamYard, but we're gonna power through it. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Prisoners. Yes. They the people on the outside don't know about this law, or that's the impression that they're getting from Cassian, that the Empire has passed this new thing, the PORD, the Patriot Act, and nobody's blinking at it. Nobody's thinking about the implications, and that they're the ones who had nothing to do with Aldani. Whatever else they may have done that landed them in prison, they had nothing to do with Aldani. they are going to pay the price for it. The irony, of course, being that Cassian, who is literally responsible for Aldhani, does actually know. He knows all this stuff, and I think, you know, as this next 3-episode arc plays out, we will see Cassian have to fess up to those other prisoners. You know, yeah, okay, it was me. I was part of that. I was part of what happened there, and your lives all got worse because of me. As a result, I'm going to help break you all out of prison. I think that moment is coming at some point in the next 2 episodes. But still, it's a really kind of heartbreaking moment. I think it's the redheaded dude that really feels it when he realizes that nobody cares about him. Nobody cares about them on the outside. And we even get that great scene at Mon Mothma's party where they're all talking about it. And, you know, they're all like, yeah, this is a great thing. This is a great thing. And these are people whose lives are already great. Yeah. They're all on Coruscant. They're going to fancy parties where they put worms into your champagne and it fizzes up, and somehow does that make you drunker or something? I don't know. It's that was one of those moments where you're like, what is going on there? That better be served at all parties at the next celebration. Otherwise, I will be disappointed. But you know, they're talking about, you know, how great the PORD is. It's going to keep them all safer. It's like, you guys already live on Coruscant. We've seen throughout the last 7 episodes these terrible conditions that everybody else is living in. Whether you're rebel, just somebody going about your day like Brasso and Bix, or even an Imperial. Like, it's Imperials living on Aldhani. They hated it. They don't like their lives. And here are these people in their fancy dress at their fancy party, drinking their fancy drinks with their fancy food. Saying, yeah, this is a great move. This is a great move. And you just see how, you know, how disconnected everybody on Coruscant is from what is really going on out there. And that's obviously by design. There's a moment in that scene where somebody talks about the Emperor as, like, you know, as a great person who gives great speeches. And
it's interesting, and I'm loving this contrast that they're doing with the especially in this episode with the prison scenes and then the Coruscant scenes. It is just such, I think, a mirror to our history and reality here. And how, you know, things are done by the high ups, the wealthy, and it's all about what they can show. Like, we know as the audience, obviously, the Emperor is like the most evil person in the galaxy, but it's like the way he presents is so immaculate and well done that most people up until now is like, yeah, the Emperor's doing great for the galaxy. Like, they can kind of believe that. And with this contrast, I want to mention one of the scenes in the prison shots as well. Is one that I found very uncomfortable, is when they were going out to work again. Their, like, little dorm was going to work, and they all went in a big room for a kind of a shower or a washing of maybe some sort of chemical or something. And, like, if that, like, you know, you can't really get any more of a direct correlation with, you know, obviously World War II concentration camps. Like, and it was so striking, and I felt so uncomfortable watching. Like, just like nothing had even happened yet, but just the visuals of them being herded into this room, and you realize it's a shower system. I was like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. And, you know, they carry on, and, you know, it was just in Andor was a shower, and they keep going to their work. I think, you know, George Lucas, when he created Star Wars, was always very, you know, he kind of spoke about how the influence, like the rule of the Nazis was quite a big influence of how he shows the Empire, you know, down to their uniforms and a lot of their, like, you know, political idealism and how they go about their structure. So I kind of appreciated how Tony Gilroy, as a creator, I feel like he's really taken on board that concept of showing a mirror to reality, even though that's in our history now, but it's like a reality that's like, even though this is the past of what's happened, like, it was still terrible, but, you know, this can not happen today, but, you know, it makes us think of the social injustice that still exists. You know what I mean?
And the tragedy is, you know, it could happen again. That's there's the old saying, those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And it's clear as a society, we don't always listen to that lesson. We don't always we tend to keep making similar mistakes, and just because something happened once and we all agree that it was a terrible thing and shouldn't happen again, we say never again over and over again. It could still happen again, and we have to be sort of vigilant against it. One thing George said about the rise of Palpatine is, I hope that if you take anything away from these movies, is that when the Emperor shows up, people are able to recognize him. And that's what he was. That's one of the sort of things he was trying to do with his story, was tell you these are the tricks. These are the things people try to do, and so you have to be alert for them, be aware of them, and it's debatable whether we learned that lesson or not, whether people got that from those films.
There's some direct, very direct social commentary in this one, like Cyril's line about one cannot be too aggressive when pursuing order.
Oh yeah.
Like that's big. That's huge. And there's so much in this that you could take, and it was like the creators know what they're doing. They know what they're what they're driving at, and this is exactly what Star Wars was designed as. This is going back to the roots of Star Wars, and I hope George Lucas is watching this show. I think he would enjoy it.
I would be fascinating to get a George reacts to Andor kind of series out there, but just another one on there, in the commentary. To go back to that scene with Mon Mothma and all her friends, quote unquote, they're standing around when they're talking about Palpatine. There was a moment there where I'm like, who are we talking about here, guys? Are we sure this is still a drama about the Emperor, about Emperor Palpatine, the Dark Lord of the Sith, or are we talking about a certain guy who used to be president? Because the parallels in what they were saying, I'm like, oh yeah, I see that. Palpatine just wants to make the galaxy great again. That's all he's out there doing. But
he would look great in a red hat.
Yeah. Hi, YouTube commenters. What was but and that scene that you were talking about, Hannah? Yeah, I had the same thought. It's a very striking scene, and it just makes you think there are so many ways they can kill them in this prison. That is one of the nice ones. That's the thing the guys say at the beginning when they get dropped off is, oh yeah, anybody who's been locked up before, this isn't going to be like that. You might actually like it a little bit better. And then it's like, here are multiple ways we can murder you if you fall out of line, even in the slightest bit. Here's all the ways we can kill you. It's pretty sickening how how disturbing that Imperial prison is. All under the veneer of this is one of the good ones where you can have all the food you want. It won't taste like anything. And if you step on the floor at the wrong time, you'll die. But it's pretty good. It's clean.
And I have seen people saying, well, it's very clean and people are getting their own cells, it's not overcrowded. It's like, it's also incredibly dehumanizing, and you're not packing people into a cell so that you are isolated from everybody else. So you can't team up and make plans. That's why they've done it. And it's clean, but it's safe in that, prisoners probably aren't going to be attacking each other, but only because they want to maintain the workforce. It's not for any human reasons. I use human in sort of our sense. It's just, they've packed humans in together into one prison. Where are the other species? Are they in another prison that's, being made for them?
And it's also, this is a galaxy where droids exist, where they can if they need a task to be done, they can just create a droid that specifically will do that task, probably more efficiently and better. And yet they specifically go out of the way to, incarcerate humans and probably other species. This is all humans in this. I'm assuming maybe there's probably others. They're treating humans this bad. We know the Empire is pretty xenophobic, so who knows what they're doing to the aliens? But
we got a little bit of a sense of that in Solo with Chewie. He's in a pit.
Yeah,
Every now and again, they throw him down somebody they can eat, but only so that they'll be entertained by watching him fight.
Yeah, but like they're doing this like just to be mean, just to do it. They're not doing it. There's no like logical reason to treat people like this. It's just like we can, so we will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Catherine, you used the word dehumanizing, and the ultimate sort of example of that comes when in the middle of the night, that one guy just decides to step on the floor and kill himself. It just hammers that point home of what this place does to people, even though it's the nice one, quote unquote.
But and the comments, I find the comments from the other cellmates when that happens was like the most interesting part of that moment.
Yeah.
Someone says, "Oh, well, we smelling him all night," like, very just grotesque. And then someone's complaining, and then another inmate says, "Well, you're the one that's going to be like down a mate or something, or we're the ones that won't have a person working for it." Like again, that idea that they're just not human, they're just that number, they're just absolutely not individuals anymore.
Yeah, and the Empire is breaking them, so they aren't even seeing each other as individuals. Like, you would think the people that could see each other as individuals are the ones that know literally what you're going through, because they're going through the same, at least physical experiences every day. But they're encouraged just to think of them as somebody else at the table, somebody else who's replaceable at the table, and somebody else who, your safety and your survival depends on them being around. And if they're not around, well, that's bad news for you, rather than, just, being upset on a human level that somebody's taken their own life right in front of you. Yeah. And the way Andy Serkis talks to Cassian in this episode is a couple of times, having I can't remember the exact line, but he's like, feeling lonely or feeling down. That's not the line, but if he says, keep it to yourself. Like don't bother everybody else with it. Yeah. Your only mission is to put together these things.
Cogs.
Yeah, it's cogs.
Literal cogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, they're not encouraged. The prisoners aren't encouraged to get to know each other in any way. They're discouraged. You think, when they're coming back to their barracks, they're giving so little time in which they could mingle with each other, and you can't have two people in a cell. And then they're forced back to their cells. That there was no talking in the line, no talking in the shower, and when they're working on the table, there's no conversation because they can't. They've just got to keep up the speed the whole time. And it was Melshi who made the effort of going, okay, Keith, referring to Cassian by the name they know him by. You could tell that guy, new guy, doesn't matter what your name is. It's just, I have a really dark theory about the machinery.
Okay.
That maybe the Empire doesn't really need it. As you say, they've got droids. So they are putting it together. There are other floors, other rooms, taking it apart, and then they put it back together again.
Oh my God, that is sinister. That is sinister.
Twisted.
Yeah, because you think there's no daily quotas. They're making the same thing. How long have they been making this thing for?
Oh my God.
I don't know. I know the Empire is huge and they need a lot of machinery. And so, yeah, they probably need this part, whatever it is. But it's just...
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's also theory. Like this nondescript, just like it's kind of pieces that go together and kind of like a prong thing. And all those go together and they wheel it out of the room and take it to another part of the building. And who knows what happens.
Yeah. Well, why I mentioned the Death Star thing is that like... What is it? It was like a toy as well, kids. It connects or something. It's like it's kind of like it's connected thing.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to make like a sphere, you would have those circular ones that would have the prongs.
Yeah, like the geodome things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of. So maybe that's like the roundness of the Death Star. I don't know. But yeah, these interesting theories.
It's dark. It would be totally in line with this prison if that was the case. Like that. That's. I kind of hope that plays out now. Like that's so sadistic and twisted. It just love it.
Probably won't, but I could almost see, okay, they accidentally make a mark on one, and then like the next shift they see that mark come up again. Like I don't know if I'm going into a trope here, whether that they are just making things, but yeah, sorry everyone, sorry.
It's kind of like the Umbara arc, where that kind of that evil thought of Krell was to like put the two clones to like clone like squads together. It would be kind of that kind of concept of being like, they don't know, but then they kind of accidentally find out. Yeah, I like that.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that Krell does in those episodes is he won't let the different clone battalions talk to each other. They won't let them see each other, and that's kind of what's going on in this episode. The different levels aren't really allowed to talk to each other.
But that one guy doing the sign language, he knows something. He's talking to people.
True. I wonder if that's going to be important. Surely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of little moments in this episode that don't mean anything within the context of this episode. I think we're going to come back to and be like, oh, that's actually really important. The sign language is one thing, and the other thing is the guy being late to take Cassian down to the floor. I'm like, why is this happening? Oh, it's going to come back. That's going to be important.
Yeah, that processing of taking him down the floor, that whole scene, there's got to be so much going on because Cassian was also clocking everything that was happening. Not all the soldiers in that or guards in that room were wearing the insulated boots. Some of them were wearing normal black boots. One guy was like putting them on in there. So it really gives the impression that, there's not many guards there. There's minimal guards, but something, he's clocking a lot of what's going on. So something must fall down there for the eventual prison break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, my brain has been working on the
on this theory.
But this show
Day
makes
and
you
night.
think.
I love it.
Because the show is so meticulous and everything, nothing is by accident. So when they linger on things, you're like, okay, Tony Gilroy, what are you trying to tell me? What is this?
What you doing?
What is this?
What you doing here?
So you're like taking notes, like, okay, the shoes, they mean the Air Jordans they're wearing, it means something.
The orange Air Jordans.
Yeah. Ben's out his corkboard with his red string, figuring it all out, putting it all together, and at the center of it is just a giant picture of Tony Gilroy. And you're like, I got it. I figured out the way this man's brain works.
I love it.
Let's shift over to Coruscant, and let's talk a little bit about, speaking of dehumanizing places, the Imperial Bureau of Standards and poor old Cyril Karn. I do love that Cyril, even when he's breaking the rules, he's following the rules. Like his form of rebelling is submitting 6 official inquiries for information, and that's what gets him in trouble. I mean, what would Uncle Harlow say about that? Well, I guess we'll never know.
Uncle Harlow. Surely that has to be the mastermind. He has to be the mastermind behind everything. I don't know how, but yeah.
Uncle Harlow is Tony Gilroy, and the two of them together. It's like the end. Yeah. It's like the end of. It's like the end of She-Hulk with Kevin. I don't know, but no, we finally at long last get the meeting of Cyril Karn and Deidre Miro. Catherine, I'll throw this to you. What did you think of these two characters finally sharing a scene together?
He was so proud of himself that he was being a part of it and being able to help the Imperials. But Deidre's just like, oh God, you really don't know anything. Why? Stop wasting my time. Just, shut up. She's so unimpressed with him. I love it. I love just the disdain she has. Sorry, I shouldn't love her as much as I do because she as shown in this episode, is still evil. But God, she's so good at being evil. Yes. Yes.
Again, that's the brilliance of this show, where they're like, they make you love the Imperial characters, and not just the Imperial characters, the Imperial Security Bureau, like the worst of the worst. And we're like, yeah, Deidre seems like she seems like a good person. I'd be on board with her. I'd work for her. Yeah, it'd be great. But yeah,
the thing is, she's right. The whole way long, they've been going, oh, what are you talking about? Stay in your lane, do what you're told, stay within your assigned systems. And we as an audience are like, no, listen to her. She's right. But if they listen to her, it means she'll catch the rebels. So how am I barracking for an Imperial?
Yeah. It's the brilliance of this show, because her arc is structured like, she's the only scientist that knows the asteroid is going to hit the Earth, and nobody's listening to her. Like, it's structured like that. But really what she's trying to do is stop the Rebel Alliance from ever happening. She's trying to, keep the Empire under Palpatine's thumb. And so we're always having to remind ourselves that, like you said, she's a representative, at least, of the bad guys. And I kind of feel the same way about Cyril. Like, over the last several episodes, I've started to really feel for this guy, even though, again, his goal is to, stop, at the very least, arrest, if not, kill Cassian, kill our hero. And I'm kind of like, but he's trying so hard, and his mom is so mean to him, and his uncle is weird, and he keeps trying to do the right thing. He's trying to do the right thing. So yeah, these two very confusing bad guys finally get a scene together. And he kind of pitches himself to her. He pitches himself to Deidre. Hannah, what'd you think of Cyril's attempt to, take over from that Tarkin-looking dude, who is Deidre's number 2?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because before their meeting, I really thought once they meet, they're going to team up, and they're going to be like, do you hate Cassian? Yeah, I hate Cassian. Let's go. Like a team rocket. Like, let's go find Cassian. And the sidekick is like the little meow thing, right? So that's what I thought was going to happen. So it was really interesting to see, Deidre really, kind of not shut him down. Well, yeah, she shut him down, really, being like, do you know anything? You got anything important? And he's like, a few key points, but she really kind of takes a little bit of it and then doesn't really take.
I can recognize his voice. If I heard him talking,
it's just like, that's a weird flex. What? And I kind of understand why she doesn't really see that to be valuable to her goals. But it's Cyril's an interesting character, because it was only really episode 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and where he was kind of
episodes 1, 2, and 3 are one episode.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I was like, actually, it's just that one blob of episodes, right? Mm-hmm. Where Cyril's in his job, and he's very good at his job, very thorough, and we see him working well. And then for the rest of the time, we just see him be this like dismal, try hard. He can't get a job. He's got to get Uncle Arlo to help. Very like sorry. So, and I think this scene really emphasizes he's just like trying everything. He's like, I can be an asset. I can be good at finding him. Like, just the way he delivers that line was so like, he's really like at his last straw, just trying so hard to get recognized and get the gig of trying to bring justice, in his opinion. But it's interesting. It's interesting how dismal his character is. But I wonder if that's setting up for, in the end, maybe not Deidre, but maybe Cyril is the one that kind of goes a bit AWOL, goes off on his own, like runs away, and then somehow finds Cassian, and that's kind of the big moment, maybe in a couple episodes' time, that he's the genius, because he's very, very sad right now.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, he says he would recognize Luthen's voice. I wonder if going forward he changes tactics.
Yeah.
And sort of like how it's ironic that Cassian, they're all looking for Cassian, and the one place that he is the place they'll never look, which is in prison, because yeah, you're not going to look for the world's most wanted criminal in a supermax prison somewhere. But I wonder if, Luthen's on Coruscant, Cyril's on Coruscant. A chance encounter could perhaps, get Cyril back into the good books or of the Empire.
Cyril see his face? Luthen was just kind of walking around shooting people. He was on that speeder bike. Like, if he ran into Luthen, could he ID him? Or could it be simple as just hearing his voice? Because, as much as we can make comparisons, saying Luthen is the Batman of Star Wars world, he does not do a scruffy. He does the low scruffy voice all the time, Luthen. So there's no disguising there.
Yeah, which, by the way, they didn't use that line in the previously on for this week. Didn't you want to risk it all for something real? I was so disappointed.
I want you to get that tattooed, Dom. Can that be on your other forearm?
Yeah.
You risk it all.
Should put it right under the rebel tattoo. Don't you want to risk it all for something real?
I'll get that, surely.
I mean, at least it was in the show. It's not like I rebel. It's like, where was that?
Yeah. I love the Rogue One trailers for everything that's not in the movie. It's like you guys are advertising something completely different. Sorry.
You could make a movie out of all the footage that's in the Rogue One trailer. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You literally could. What was he trying to say? I had a fantastic theory. Oh, yes. Theory time. Okay. Here we go. So, this is how things happen. Cyril goes out to find Luthen, and he goes back to Ferrix, just thinking maybe Luthen lives there. He doesn't know he's from off-world. And so he goes around and he's looking around, and maybe he puts out a little hologram of Luthen's face, and no one knows who that guy is. You know who knows the face of Luthen? That really weird, annoying guy on the bus.
That guy.
That was just talking for ages, and he goes,
"What
and
you
he's
want?"
walking around Ferrix again, and he's like, "Oh, I know that face. I met him on a bus."
Hannah, I think you just broke Catherine.
Not bus guy. Bus guy. Bring back bus guy.
Bus guy's the key to everything.
He is. He knows it all.
Man.
That's my theory. I should get paid if that actually is what happens.
Yeah.
I need to get some sort of a reward.
If that happens, I think you have to get Bus Guy tattooed somewhere.
Okay. Just like a face of him.
Yeah.
Just
his face with "what you want" underneath it.
Hey, there's some merch for you. A wallet with Bus Guy's face on it. There, Hasbro. I know you don't make wallets, but get on that.
That's it.
Get on that, Patrick.
Oh my god,
man, what were we talking about? Cyril, yes,
Luthen, Cyril. Yeah,
Cyril,
how does he find him?
Yeah, how's he find him? Yeah, that'll be interesting to see where this goes from here. Because again, Cyril, he does not get any respect, even though he is, of all the people working for the Empire, he's got to be one of the truest believers in the Imperial cause out there. Again, somebody brought up the line he had earlier about, what's the point in you can't go as far. There's no price that's you're not willing to pay for law and order or something to that effect. But nobody looks at him twice. Nobody thinks that this guy can actually help them beyond, a very narrow image. So it'll be interesting to see where we wind up with old Ferrix. As for Deidre, she makes her pitch to Yularen, who is really, he's that annoying person to talk to, is on his phone the whole time, looking at other stuff.
I'm listening.
Yeah, but he does seem to go along with it. But I did love that from Yularen, and Luthen gets a nice cool nickname, Axis. What a nickname.
Axis.
What a guy.
The center of things.
Yeah.
Like Fulcrum.
Precursor to, because Fulcrum is also a name that they're aware of. later on.
Yeah.
Because, like, Ahsoka and Cassian, I think in the lore, Cassian was a fulcrum at some point. So, like, cool. And just, like, also kind of fearing for Luthen now, because I love him so much, of, like, they're onto him. Like, they've named him, they know he exists. And he's right next door. He's right next door, next to everything. He's right there. Like, it can go out. It goes back to that. The guy. Have you heard of Eldani? I'm like, wait a minute. Like, did they find him? But like, no. But like, Luthen's days are numbered, and I'm fearing for him.
I have another theory. I have another idea. Here we go. What if the way they start to piece together Luthen and who Luthen is that there's been lots of mentions about how, like, Mon Mothma's driver is kind of like part of the ISB, SBI. I better say SBI then. I got mixed with the FBI and the ISB. The ISB, and he's like an agent. Kind of the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh no, not really. But maybe they go, oh, this guy, you should check out this antiques dealer. She kind of knows, like, you should check him out. And maybe like Deidre or Yularen or like one of the agents go to Luthen's shop and like pretends to buy something, and they have this very like loaded conversation, and Luthen's kind of like, oh no, there's an like Imperial ISB guy here, and they kind of like, what do you want? And the ISB's like, well, what is this all you have? And it could be a very tense scene where it's like they're very close.
That would be good. I was bracing myself for another bus guy theory. I like that one. I think that one's
okay.
And then while they're talking, bus guy comes in and he was like, hey, weren't you on Ferrix? And they were like, Ferrix, Luthen? And they were like, oh my god, Cassian. That's what
I will add to your theory and say that there's a very prominent several shots in the trailers, all the trailers, where Luthen's ship is like straight up like destroying TIE fighters and going head to head with a big Star Destroyer thing. I think at the very least Luthen's cover will be blown by the end of the season.
Well, Clea does say to him in this episode, "You're slipping," and I think we've seen pretty much since the beginning, since he went back to Coruscant, at least, the toll that this is taking on him. The double life, the secrecy of it, the stress is evident on his face. In those moments in between him, going out and talking to a rebel and him being back on the ship, or being back at the shop, with his, smiling, oh, look at this antique I've got. In those moments in between that, you just see this guy who just looks exhausted. He just looks like he's in pain. And I feel like, if the ISB came to try and talk to him, something might happen. So he might slip up, and he's so paranoid about everybody else slipping up. He's paranoid about Mon Mothma slipping up. He's paranoid about Cassian somehow betraying him. That it's probably going to be him that slips up somewhere along the line, because this guy has been doing this for such a long time that he's going to make a mistake, and he has all these ideas in this episode that feel like mistakes, and it takes Clea to say to him, no, don't do that. You can't do that. Please don't do that.
And I like the double sides of him in this episode, kind of admitting, oh, I was getting ahead of myself. I screwed up on Ferrix. I really shouldn't have done that. Even though Aldani worked out, I was reckless going out and doing what I did with Cassian. And then the ISB on the flip side going, this guy just made his first mistake, and we've got him now. Yeah. Like that whole thing. I think that's setting up some stuff that's going to get real interesting in the next couple episodes. I think this may be the big theme and the big Coruscant thing going on between Saw Gerrera and all this kind of stuff.
I do think Cyril does have a part to play in this, though, because again, he says, I can recognize his voice. He was there. He was very close in proximity to Luthen in those first couple of episodes. And Luthen says, I was uncareful with Cassian. And so he's afraid that Cassian's going to lead them back to him. But what if it wasn't Cassian specifically, but just his actions around Cassian that alerted, an enemy he doesn't want to make it in Cyril Karn to be the one to turn him over or to figure out who he is.
Or maybe Cyril's going nowhere. Maybe he just goes home and chokes on his cereal, and that's that.
Just living his sad life in that office there with his little tie, and he his space tie. I
hope people wear that to like a formal event at Celebration.
Yes.
There's
so much in these episodes that I just look at that and go, somebody has got to do this for Celebration, whether that's the cereal, there's somebody, we got to be able to buy that somewhere, the little ties, as we were saying earlier, the worms in your champagne for some reason, all that
Actually,
good stuff.
that cereal is a real cereal. I don't know if people know that. Somebody tracked it down. It's like from like a obscure like tricks, like Oops All Berries something or another, like real cereal, like in a really obscure cereal. Like it's crazy. So like feasibly, you can go out, you can track this down, you can have some of Cyril's cereal.
Oh, good stuff. If that's not a Star Wars podcast by next week, somebody's missed out on the naming front. Let's go back to Mon Mothma's party for a little bit here, because we talked about her conversations with those other sort of Imperial senator characters, but we should talk a little bit about her family, because weird things are going on with the Mothma family. Her husband continues to be just a pill.
The worst.
And her daughter just keeps having these scenes that don't seem to mean anything, but have to mean something.
What?
Yeah.
Hannah,
what's going on here?
Yeah. Let's break it down. I audibly, when they had the scene with, what's her name? It's not Claire. What's the daughter's name?
Lita.
Lita. It's, after they had that interaction, that was so strange, so odd. She was like, hey, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, nothing, what do you want? And she's like, okay, bye, I'll talk to you later. It's like, what the hell? And I audibly went, well, that was really weird. Because I was like, what the hell? Like that, and surely that's building to something, but I don't have a theory for that. I don't have a theory of like, maybe she's like on the Empire side and she's a spy against her mum. Like I don't know if that I really can't tell where that's going. And Perrin is being just as suspicious. I've got some great kind of shots of, Mon Mothma walking away from a conversation and Perrin's like looking at her like suspiciously, and there's definitely something going on back there. I don't know if they're going behind her back or if they're just kind of ignorant until now, but now they're cluing on. It's really interesting, but it adds to it's a nice level of mystery, I think, and it'll be satisfying once we know kind of what's happening behind the scenes by the end of the season. I think we'll figure out why.
I think with Lita, I think she suspects that Mon Mothma and Tay might be having an affair. As simple as that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think Perrin might think that too.
Yeah. There is my favorite line in the entire episode is when Tay says charity begins at home to Perrin about when he says he's going to go get something to eat. That was so funny. There's something like, there's also a shot. During that scene where Mon Mothma's talking to Perrin and those people that are visiting, and they're talking about looking out the window and how they don't appreciate their view on Coruscant and all that stuff. There's this weird shot. It's a wide shot. So Mon Mothma and Perrin are kind of in the background. They're in focus, and then everything in the foreground and the midground is out of focus. And you just see Lita, that's her name, right? Lita?
Yeah.
Lita. Walk through eating like one of those cookies that Baby Yoda steals from that kid in season 2 of The Mandalorian.
It looked like a green one, yeah.
And I'm like, that's really weird that she just walked through the middle of the scene like that. Like usually you don't have a character that we would recognize walk through a scene like that unless something is going on. So, she suspects something. Joel with a super chat here thinks, he says, I don't trust Perrin or Mon Mothma's daughter. I think Perrin will rat out Mon Mothma, and Mon's daughter might be a little Palpatine's youth told to spy on her parents at an Imperial school.
Wow.
Which definitely a possibility. But I could also see it going the other way, where like one of them actually figures out what she's doing and wants to help. Whether it's Perrin, which I think's unlikely. I guess more likely their daughter. I don't know. Something's going on here.
I think, honestly, as much as we all love to hate Perrin, I can't help but feel like they're leaning a little too hard into this guy as an a-hole. I think there might be a character arc for this guy. I think there might be a twist with this guy where he's not, maybe he's not going to be a hero per se, but maybe he's not as carefree about all this as he seems to be.
But he's the only person I've hated with no, I can just get my hate on with him.
But also that's fine too. Just love to hate him. Not everyone needs a hero's journey, okay? A redemption arc.
It's the reverse of Deidre, right? Like it would be. Yeah.
Another thing with Leader is I think back to I've only heard about this in books, to be honest, but it's like this youth legislative program. It's for where the young senators go to train up. I wonder if Leader's in that program yet, or she's in it, and maybe she is kind of getting a little bit indoctrinated into the Palpatine rule and what he's doing, and maybe she kind of sides with him a little bit, and maybe she's kind of growing up on Coruscant is quite an experience, especially in this Imperial age. I wonder if that is going to be mentioned, that she might be in that program, which is in a bunch of books, and Princess Leia went through it all, and that's kind of a thought I've had. I'm I wonder if she's experiencing that, doing that because she's the daughter of a senator as well. But anyway.
Yeah, this show has, sort of goes about putting the characters in the worst possible positions. What's the worst thing that could happen to them? And what would be the worst thing that could happen to Mon Mothma, or to anybody really? It would be to, you're trying to raise a rebellion to take down the galaxy. Meanwhile, at home, your child is is a true believer in the Empire. Again, it's like Joel was saying with the super chat a second ago. The Palpatine's youth, the Nazi youth kind of idea.
Yeah,
it would be really sort of horrible and terrible, and the worst thing that could happen to Mon Mothma. And then to, for her have to figure out, how can I lead a successful rebellion out in the galaxy if I can't even, instill good values within my own home? If you can't do that, how can you restore peace and freedom to the galaxy?
Charity starts at home.
Charity starts at home. Let's talk. We talked a little bit about Lutheran, but let's talk about his other main conversation in this episode, which is he goes and sees Saw Gerrera. Saw making his debut in this episode. Ben, I'll just start right to you. What did you think of this back and forth between these two powerhouses of the rebellion?
I think that was the best acted scene in Star Wars history. I genuinely think that, just obviously Stellan Skarsgård has been bringing it.
Yeah.
These past episodes. But Forrest Whitaker was one. As Saw Gerrera, going back to Rogue One, was someone that I was honestly a little weirded out by in Rogue One, a little bit. It's a strange performance, okay? And I get what they're trying to
Lies,
do. But
deception.
Lies, deceptions. He's like...
Did you
really come to kill me? Well, let's just do this for the rest of the episode. Oh, I love it.
He's still I get what they're trying to do. They're getting him at the end of his life. He's gone mad. And he's at the end of his rope. I get it. I get what they're trying to do. It was a brief departure, a huge departure from what we heard previously, which was like, oh, this is the same guy from Clone Wars, the Onderon arc. That, you know, like this is all this going to that extreme. And of course, now that we have all these great stories with going to Jedi Fallen Order and Bad Batch, and kind of it's painting a clearer story and a clearer arc for his character. But what I like about this is he's not crazy. He's not as crazy, I should say. He's definitely on the extreme side. He's definitely on this, but I like that he's coming into this, and obviously he's not going to work with some people, and they don't come out and say it, but of course he doesn't work with a separatist. Separatist killed his sister, for crying out loud. Like, you know, that, of course, that's going to be a sticking point for him. He doesn't want to work with anybody else, but it's setting up a great arc for him, because we know here he doesn't want to work with anybody. In Rogue One, he's broke with the rebellion. He doesn't work with them. He has worked with him before. So, you know, we're assuming leading up to maybe something later on the season, early next season, where we will see Saw Gerrera working perhaps alongside people like Mon Mothma and Lutheran, and finally getting Lutheran doing his best to get him in there. And then we're going to see that falling apart. But my God, Forrest Whitaker is just an amazing powerhouse of acting. And, you know, I'm glad that like, because let's face it, we've had some actors in Star Wars that like do one and done things. They don't want to come back. Forrest Whitaker has played ball. He is every opportunity he has come back. Video games, animation, TV, movies, whatever. He will do it. He will play Forrest Whitaker.
Play Forrest Whitaker in any kind of Star Wars.
Yeah, that's just how method he is. He sees real life as playing a role, the role of Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, it's great. I love that he lists, one of the things he listed off was human cultists. I'm like, I want to see more about that. That sounds horrifying, but sounds real interesting. You know, we can also get a little bit of a sense of Luthen's tactics in this scene, where he's trading, you know, weapons and access for, you know, people doing what he wants. And we saw how that worked kind of with Cassian in the previous episodes. It gives him the necklace, the Kyber crystal of some description, in order for Cassian to go do the Aldhani raid. In this episode, he's desperately trying to get Saw. I nearly said Forrest Whitaker, Ben. Oops. You've broken me. He's trying to get Saw to meet with this guy who wants to blow up a power station, is what it sounds like. And Saw absolutely refuses. And, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, Luthen slipping. Hannah, it seems like we're kind of seeing the limits of what Luthen can get done on his own. What do you make of that?
I think, oh, that's a good question. What do I think about that? I think Luthen is a really interesting character in terms of when we first met him, he was very, very confident, very strong, and he strides in. He pushes away Busman, and he just strides in. He's doing a job. He's got this set up with the trade of weapons and things. But I think his answer to the question that Saw so perfectly asks him is, you know, what do you stand for? Like, you know, what do you believe in, or something of that nature? And his answer wasn't even an answer. He just said, "Oh, like, I'm afraid. I'm a man working in fear." So it kind of, I always thought Luthen has like this perfect plan ahead, but I think Luthen is more of a person that he's really working in the moment, and he's working purely out of fear. And I think his response really says that I'm working out of fear that, you know, the Empire will become, you know, so great and so powerful that like no one can do anything. And, you know, I find that really interesting of, you know, sometimes the types of heroes we get are always the ones that are just, you know, they have a plan, they're going about their one goal, and like that's kind of the hero we get. But he, you know, Luthen, this strong middle-aged man, you know, just set up that he's confident, he knows what he's doing, he's living, he's making these decisions out of fear. I found that a really interesting concept for his character specifically.
Yeah, something, you know, the way you frame that is, you know, he's making his decisions made by fear. He's driven by fear. it's very different to how we usually think about fear in Star Wars. We always tend to think of fear as, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. That's the path to the dark side. And in this case, we're seeing someone who is clearly, by his own admission, motivated by fear. But he seems to be acting with a certain clarity that we don't think about when we think about, Anakin Skywalker or Luke Skywalker or any of the principal heroes of the saga, being driven by fear and that leading them down a dark path. And who knows, there's still time. He could go down a dark path. And you could argue that his goals, he says in the previous episode, he wants people to suffer because that'll make them wake up. You could argue that's not necessarily the greatest thing. Or the most humane way to treat people, but it's a different take on fear. And again, it's like a lot with this series. It's just sort of taking what we know and twisting it just a little bit, and putting us in an interesting spot.
With the idea of fear as well. I don't know what episode it was, but it was a couple of weeks ago. And I brought this up and everyone was like, no, that's just like a part of the scene. He's just worried. It was when he was like, he couldn't get through on the radio and he was really, really afraid. Like he was like, you could see great performance and you could really see the anxiety that was just overwhelming him in just his expression, the way his body's dropped as he's trying to get a hold of this news, what's happened on Aldhani. I think that was a really, really important scene and a really, really important emotion for him to show. And it makes sense now in my impression of him is like, okay, he's this guy working out of fear. I just find that such an interesting take on and kind of tying into what you've just said, Dom, of how we've seen fear used in Star Wars so far. Like fear is a negative thing, but Luthen's kind of using the fear as the fuel and that anxiety as the fuel to try and make what he thinks is the best decision for a good cause. It's a really interesting way how he's kind of feeling that anxiety. It's like fueling him to do good.
Yeah, fear is a natural thing, right? Like it's something everybody feels, and it's sort of what they're saying. I feel like what they're saying with this is that it can be a good thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing, and in fact. When you break it down to sort of a base level, if you're in the woods and you see a bear and you're afraid, that's your body telling you something is wrong and you need to take action. Like you need to, be conscious of the fact that there is something that could harm you around. Or if you're standing at the edge of a cliff and you feel afraid, it's probably your body saying, don't take another step. What are you doing? Step backwards. That's how my brain speaks to me. It's exclusively screeching.
Screaming sounds like an octave higher than your usual voice. I love it.
Yeah. And so I think in that sense that Luthen is acting out of fear in a good way because he's looking around at the galaxy. He's like, I'm afraid of what's happening. And so his action is not to just continue being afraid, but is to take action to change that. He doesn't just let the fear overwhelm him so that he's hiding under a desk somewhere, but he's taking action. But at his core, like he says to Saw, he's afraid. He's afraid of what might happen.
Yeah, like his fear is keeping him cautious as well, like making him live this double life. He doesn't expose himself. He doesn't, in a way, 100% commit to the life of a rebel like Saw has. He's still living a life on Coruscant. And yes, he can do a lot of good from there, like coordinating all of these other groups or trying to get them to work together. But he's still afraid of what could happen if he's exposed. And that's why he's going, go find Cassian Andor, find out what's happened to him, because he can lag on me. Sorry, that was super Australian.
Oh, I feel so at home. This is so good. This is so good.
Yeah,
Actually, it made me think just before. Sorry, you go.
I was gonna say Hannah's like, this is finally a fair fight.
Yeah, right. I get what you're saying. I was gonna say before, when you were being like, when you're in a forest and you see a bear, and me and Catherine were like, what? How? Why would you see a bear? Like, that's not. We've never experienced that.
Again, that was
we do have drop bears.
That's true.
Yeah.
When you're walking through the forest, and you're drinking your maple syrup, and you see a grizzly bear.
That's literally what you sounded like. That's exactly what you sounded like.
When you're walking through the woods and you see a kangaroo and you challenge it to a fist fight.
Get the boxing gloves, Lutheran. Let's go. I don't know why Lutheran was with me in the Australian outback.
Yeah, hey, you know, I mean, you're joining up with the Rebel Alliance, and he had to come to you, so you guys went out to the outback. And, you know,
I'm not living in fear anymore.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that Stellan Skarsgård has absolutely no problems going into the woods. He can just anything he comes across, he can just yell at it like he yells at Vel in that first Aldani episode, and they'll just run away.
Yeah. Oh, that was so scary.
Look at me!
Oh, okay. Okay. I was about to mention, I think the Australian equivalent of seeing a bear, it would be seeing a spider. If you see like a huntsman, like on the wall.
Oh.
You with me, Catherine? It's like you just
Green.
all fear. Just like you just freeze. You freak out. You freak out. Don't know what to do. Oh,
all right.
I love it.
It's a note: don't mention bears on future episodes.
Yeah, I don't know why I was so upset about you mentioning a bear.
Bears, no problem. Spiders, big problem.
Yeah. Well, I think spiders are universal. Everybody can. I mean, you guys do have specifically terrifying spiders, but everybody's afraid of spiders at least.
I think you guys need to import some grizzly bears. I think you don't have enough animals that can kill you.
Maybe they'll eat the spiders. Maybe that'll combat it a bit. I don't know.
That was the theory behind like importing the cane toads.
I heard
they
that.
would eat something.
They would eat
and that backfired.
Crickets and all the things.
So
anyway,
Andor,
what the hell are we talking about? What on earth are we talking about? Lutheran is scared of bears. What are we on?
We've just come up with a whole bunch of things that Lutheran is scared of: bears, spiders, cliffs, kangaroos, cane toads, and all
lions
sorts of
and
stuff.
tigers
Sometimes
and
the
frogs. Oh my!
And just for Ben, he's also afraid of alligators.
Yeah, those are that's
the Mississippi equivalent.
Yeah. That's freaking terrifying. They're dinosaurs, for crying out loud.
They are.
I was taken to Okefenokee swamp in is that Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Bloody
I've heard
hell.
of that.
Bloody hell. Oh,
That was great. That was good. Bloody hell.
Yeah, that's
good.
That's the right response.
Let's
To Star Wars, guys.
yeah. Let's talk about the scenes on Ferrix, because we go back to Ferrix, and lots of storylines are starting to converge back on this planet. We still have Brasso, Bix, and Marva are there, along with those two guys who run the other shop. I can't remember their names. Tic-tac-toe. And his son. But we see Vel is there, along with Cinta, who has escaped Aldani, thankfully, and Mira shows up there. So we're really everything is starting to converge back on Ferrix. I do want to talk about Marva first, because there's such a tragic scene that happens there, where Brasso and Bix are talking about how she fell over in the town square the other day because she was trying to open up some trap door so that the Rebel Alliance could get through. And they're talking about it, and they're kind of like talking about her like, oh, poor Marva, she's losing her mind with her old age. And across the street, sitting in the cafe, are two agents of the Rebel Alliance. Marva is literally the only one that knows what's actually going on. Everybody else is like, oh, sweet old lady losing her mind. And there's Vel and Cinta like, yeah, no, we're in the right spot. We got to deal with this. We got to deal with this stuff that's going on here. Catherine, I'll throw it to you. What did you make of the stuff around Marva in this episode with her scenes and how everybody's kind of reacting to her?
First off, Fiona Shaw. Oh my God, she's amazing.
Yes.
Yes. Oh. And yeah, her breathing, Marva's breathing in the scene, I was like, oh God, that just doesn't sound good. It sounds very ominous. But her just deciding, no, down to my last breath, I'm going to do something to help the rebels. Because, yeah, her plan wasn't to flood the Imperials out. It was just that, okay, I'll open up this door for the tunnels that maybe the rebellion can get in. You know, that was her plan. And she was trying so hard to fulfill it. She fell over, hurt herself, not sounding good. Oh God, yeah, her and
it's
B2
a sad
emo.
story.
Yeah.
B2. Oh, it's just downhill. So downhill.
And there's B2. Is that a Funko? Is that what that is there?
Yes, it's a Funko.
Oh my God.
And his little head wobbles. That's amazing.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. It's sort of tragic, but again, she's the one person who is, kind of thinking like we have to take action. Everybody else is still in kind of just get through the day mode. But she's the one that realized that, there is hope out there. There are people fighting back. And I kind of think, just to circle all the way back to something we were talking about way back at the beginning of the show, I think that's what the prisoners were looking for. Is they were looking for Cassian to come in and be like, yeah, that happened. And, there's a fire across the galaxy. People are standing up. And part of the reason they were so devastated was him acting like he doesn't know what they're talking about means that isn't happening. The rebellion isn't at the level that they want it to be at yet. But there are people that want to fight, that are ready to fight. They're just, not the people that society tends to listen to. People behind bars, elderly people, Yeah. We also see Bix winds up captured. She starts by reaching out to Luthen, and then winds up within the clutches of Deidre Miro. Ben, what'd you make of what went on with that character?
Yeah, so I obviously seems that because of them sending that signal, it may have tipped off the Empire and may have gotten the dad and his kid in trouble, which is just awful. And you feel bad for her because she's already dealing with so much other stuff, and she's gonna be guilty over this. And then I love Deidre. Deidre they're bringing Bix up, and Deidre's like, no, leave him there. And then she comes in and she's like, what are you doing? Get him out of here. This whole play, this whole theatrics of that. And it also going back to what we were talking about earlier, how much you have rooted for Deidre this whole time when when she's sitting across from that a-hole Blevin. You love her so much. And he's like, you just love him start, her start smiling and him start, just sitting there going oh my gosh. It's so great. And then you get here, you're like, oh yeah, she's a bad guy. And then you're like, oh, you're about to hurt Bix. I hate you now. This is so bad. Because now these two, it's so great. Again, Bix, so great. How she plays off of Cassian. Her whole story has been great. I've loved that. I was afraid that after the first 3 episodes, we wouldn't see her again, but she's keeps popping up, keeps having a role to play, which is amazing. But having her, all these characters coming together and having Deidre coming into contact with Cyril and now all the Ferrix characters is just, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, this is all this, like I was saying off the top, this episode is bringing the storylines together. We're finally seeing how Cassian's actions everywhere around the galaxy are having an impact, and they're landing all on Ferrix. Hannah, any thoughts on the Bix Mira confrontation or first meeting in this episode?
I think it makes sense that we're here and they're after Bix and they know Bix. I really feel for Bix. I was really like, when watching that scene, I remember being like, oh no, like run, maybe like Brass. I love how Brasso was kind of like trying to accidentally shield, like, oh sorry, that
I don't know how to get out of the way. I'm sorry.
Whoopsie. Yeah, it was so good. It was so nice. But yeah, I'm a little worried. I don't think she'll like die. I don't think they're gonna kill Bix, but I am worried of like, what's gonna happen to her, because I think she's had a pretty sad time of what we've seen. Like she wasn't in the greatest relationship, and then even though that wasn't great, like he got Tim got murdered in front of her. That's like heavy. And then the Empire came in and suppressed everything, and she's not living the best life. And I just want her to deserve the world. She just deserves the galaxy, really. So it is sad how this is getting harder and harder for her, and she's just trying to do her best to be a good friend and be there for her friends, Cassian, and the way she takes care of Marva, I think is quite beautiful. But it's going to be interesting. I wonder if we're going to, next episode, we'll get a scene with Deidre and Bix, and because I think that conversation will be really interesting. Does Bix crack and start telling her all about Cassian, or I have more of the feeling where Bix, even though she's not, really a part of the rebellion yet, kind of thing. And she's, she said, Cassian, get out of here. Like, that's the best thing you can do. I think she'll protect Cassian pretty hard to the end. And I hope that we get that scene where, Deidre's going all out trying to get information, and Bix just is not cracking. She's too strong-minded for it.
And of course, Bix doesn't have information where Cassian is, but she actually knows more about Lutheran than what Deidre would suspect.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of ways that it could go.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Bix in a sense, I think is kind of and I'll throw Brasso in this category too. They're kind of the perfect people to join the rebellion. Because we see in this episode just that they really are people who care. Just the fact that they're both there looking after Marva, even though they have that little exchange where they say, she's not your mother. Well, she's not your mother either. But they both care about her. They care about Cassian. And so they're willing to show up even for Cassian, who has been, a pretty terrible friend to both of them. They're both willing to cover for him. I kind of think we almost need to see what it is about Cassian and his relationship with these two that creates such trust that they're both willing to like risk it all for him and put their own safety on the line. But clearly that there is a tight bond between those three, and it manifests in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And then the final thing I wanted to bring up is the other two people that have made their way to Ferrix, Vel and Cinta. Back together again, reunited briefly
nice.
before Cinta says, "I'm going to go stay in the hotel. You get the hell out of here before somebody catches us." I'll throw this out to whoever wants to take it. What did we make of the scene between the two of them, where they're sort of discussing their plan and their lives in this age of empires and rebellions?
I definitely think we see Cinta's absolute commitment to the cause above everything else, that she's willing to put down her life. She's willing to take life for the cause. Like, she'd be willing to kill Cassian. I think Vel has far more reservations about that because, Cassian did hold up his end of the bargain. But yeah, it's interesting, and it is good to finally see them like confirmation. Yes, these two are together; they are in a relationship. But whether it can, withstand the pressures of being part of the rebellion and with opposing philosophies, don't know.
Yeah, it was a really.
And Belle ended up on that sad bus.
Oh my god, yes. On the sad
And the
bus.
shot of the, Cinta talks about, I'm your mirror, I'm your reflection, and then there's the slow fade, and they're both. It's
Star Wars.
It's perfect.
So Star Wars. Oh, crossfade. It was very reminiscent, I thought, of when I think there's a shot of like that in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin's like looking out, and I don't know if it fades though, but it's like, he's looking this way and then it cuts to Padme like looking that way. Like it was, I kind of was thought of that moment. But yeah, that was a great conversation between them. The very interesting, the best thing I've found about Andor is it doesn't take a lot of dialogue to get to the kind of point or kind of reveal what they're trying to get across. Like it's only a handful of lines here, but you really understand what's these two characters, where they're coming from, and what they're kind of talking about, and it's really, really not deep, but it's just really interesting stuff they're saying. And what we said about the mirror, you love me because you see. What did she say? You see something in me. Oh God, what's the line? It was like a really zingy line. It was like, oh, that's deep, man.
I can't think of the line either, but I think everybody
really great
knows the
no
moment.
One can remember.
Iconic, memorable line. What is it again? A great scene, and good to have those two continuing to play a role in the series. And I'm glad Cinta got off Aldhani. I was a little worried that she was going to be stuck there for a while. The other thing I'll throw in there, more and more I'm believing the theory that Vel is Luthen's daughter, because Cinta even says she's going to pretend to be a rich girl who's running away from home. I'm like, yeah, this is where we're headed, isn't it? But that more or less brings us to the end of everything that I wanted to bring up. We did get a couple of super chats from Joel. We mentioned one already, but we'll go through a couple otherwise. This one, he says, at the end of Andor, it looks like Cyril and Deidre will be blasting off again. Winky face with your tongue sticking out.
Oh, like Team Rocket blasting off again?
Oh, okay.
They're like Team Rocket?
That explains that one. I did not understand what this was, and I was hoping somebody would get the reference. Thank you.
And up again.
And then this one, I love hearing all the different rebel factions who all hate the Empire but want a different galactic order and system once the Empire is gone. Yeah, that was a great moment in the Saw Gerrera episode. The Saw Gerrera portion of the episode. Ben, is it time? Are we doing one this week? I'm judging by the way you're suggestively raising your eyebrows. I'm going to say it's time for Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do. Bop, bop. Ben, take it away.
That's going to be really anticlimactic because I didn't find a whole lot of stuff in this episode. I'll just be honest. And you already mentioned one, the Lita eating the macarons. So you stole that one from me. So thanks a lot for that.
You're welcome.
I will point out that the transports that the prisoners are on are pretty much the same transports that we saw in the book of, not the book of the Mandalorian, maybe the book of Boba Fett, and also Obi-Wan Kenobi. Pretty much the same mega model, which are also very reminiscent of what we see in Force Awakens and sequel trilogy, which is cool. The prison guards are all carrying DH-17 blasters. Those blasters, actually, I had to kind of do some research on this. They're the same kind of blasters that the rebels are carrying on the Tainted 4. and others. Which, when I've always seen those, I thought, oh well, it's just kind of a rebel make of Blaster or whatever. But like now thinking deeper into it, I'm like, well, it's the these prison guards like have the lowest level. They don't have the high tech stuff like the rest of the Empire. They have the E11s or whatever else that the Empire has, stormtroopers. So now the rebels are using basically what prison guards in the Empire use. I think that's kind of interesting. And the last one for the night, I will say, it's not even a Star Wars connection, but I thought it was cool. Ulaf, it's the older guy that's at Cassian's table. He's played by Christopher Fairbank. You may also know him as the actor who played the Broker in Guardians of the Galaxy, the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which one's the Broker?
The guy that Yondu goes in and harasses. Oh, blee, bobly, bobly, that scene.
Everybody how do you know these things, man?
I didn't. I had to do a bunch of research to get that.
I want you know how during COVID people would just like go online and read off movie scripts, like you get a bunch of people together. I want that, but it's just Ben doing Guardians of the Galaxy where he plays all the characters.
All characters.
I think that needs to happen. All right, I am Groot. That concludes Ben's Connection Corner. Before we hit final thoughts and scores out of 10, anything else anybody wants to bring up about Narkina 5? Or any of the other planets in this episode?
Maybe. I think I need to research this one, and I should have done it before the show to add into the Connection Corner. But oh geez, I need a life. This is a really deep cut thing. There's a scene in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin is running up to the space opera to meet Palpatine, and he's run up the stairs, and there's all these like wealthy, well-dressed people walking up the stairs. And there's two characters that are walking together on the stairs that I'm pretty sure are at Mon Mothma's party. I think there's a shot of one of them. There's a special hat they're wearing that I recognize. But I'm after the show, I'm gonna go back and look at it and see if it is. I'm pretty sure it's the same character. And I'll tweet about it later if that is true. But I need something else in my life than be like, that's the same person on the stairs. Oh, jeez.
See, Ben, that's a Connection Corner right there.
I know. Just go ahead and rename it Hannah's Connections Corner. She's already upstaged me. Clearly putting more work into this than I am.
But that, bringing up that scene in at the opera in the hallway at Mon Mothma's party, who should be at Mon Mothma's next party on Coruscant? Baron Papanoida and his daughter.
Oh my God, yes.
Let's get George back in there. Get George back in there.
Imagine.
He'd be like, you want me to
break the internet.
You want me to do what? I was in Star Wars. No, I made Star Wars. I wasn't in Star Wars. I like to think George forgot about that moment. It's just like somebody tricked him into being in that scene. Right. All right. I think we should wrap up the discussion and give some final thoughts and scores out of 10 for Andor Episode 8, Narkina 5. Ben, start us off.
All right. So, like I said, this was an amazing episode all around. Again, it's just so much happened, but yet so much didn't happen that sets up what's going to happen, we're assuming, in later episodes. And this is all very exciting. Like I'm getting into the rhythm of this, of like understanding how this show works, and like, oh, we're gonna get a setup episode. Next week it's gonna be some intrigue and stuff's gonna happen, and then we're gonna set up for the next big episode at the end, and the third episode is gonna be great. Like I'm really into the groove of this now. But these episodes alone, I think, are great. This episode is particularly introduced so much. The political commentary, as we said, is right on point. It's great. I love that they're doing stuff like this, and there's so many really good conversations that have and should be had about the world around us, and maybe Star Wars can actually make us have those conversations sometimes, which is great. Acting is superb. Like I said, some of the best acting I think we've seen in a long, long time, if ever, in Star Wars. And Cannot wait for what's going to happen next week. But I'll give this episode, I'll give it like a 9.5. Like this is top notch.
9.5 out of 10 from Ben. Hannah, what about you? Final thoughts, score out of 10?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed the pacing and the juxtaposing they did with the wealth and kind of privilege of the people at Mon Mothma's party and the prison scenes. I found really interesting. And I feel like we didn't talk about it enough, maybe this discussion, but yeah, Diego's acting in every scene he was in was just sublime. It was just so good. And same with like Fiona Shaw and Forrest Whitaker. Like it's Star Wars. It's not Star Wars. Andor is just the most well acted Star Wars piece of media in my opinion. I think it's so good, so high quality. I can't really pinpoint what I didn't like about this episode. But I think it comes back to I think I wanted more. I think I wanted more dialogue and a bit more of it, which I guess is a good criticism to have. I'm going to give this one a solid 8.5.
8.5 from Hannah. Catherine, final thoughts, score out of 10?
I've absolutely no objective opinion. I'm just letting you know.
And look, you are allowed to give scores that are higher than 10 out of 10. That is something that's allowed on this show.
It is an 11. It is. I come from a place of, yes, I wanted it to be good, and it's beyond good. It is great. And every week I'm nagging my work, the people in my office, have you started watching Andor? Have you started watching Andor? Now that, like Rings of Power and House of the Dragon's over, okay, well, those conversations we can stop. I can stop explaining about the dragons each week and the Targaryen family tree. I can just talk Andor. Just let me go each lunchtime. Just let me go. Yeah, 11 out of 10. It was just so good. And I just want more. Oh my God. I just want it. I just want it.
I love it.
The passion. The passion, yeah. The distraction shows are out of the way now. We don't have to worry about what's going on in Westeros or Middle-earth. Can focus exclusively on the galaxy far, far away, and especially the exploits of Cassian Andor and co. For me, I think this was my second favorite episode of the series, second only to the Eye episode, but I'm still going to give it a 10 out of 10 because I thought it was an absolutely terrific episode. I got no complaints. This felt like the strongest sort of beginning to an arc that we've had. There was so much going on and just so many sort of like little fun surprises, whether it's Melshi or just Andy Serkis being in there for some reason. I love it. I love that the guy can play multiple roles in Star Wars. He doesn't just have to be Snoke. So if you're thinking that's the origin story of Snoke, again, I will remind you, your Snoke theory sucks. Or maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. We had Snoke in a jar on Mandalorian. Maybe this was Snoke in a jail. So yeah, absolutely loved the episode. Love that we went around, saw the characters again, and just really, as always, looking forward to next week and the continuation of the story. And next week it will again be the focus. We won't have 6 more episodes of animated shorts because somebody needs to explain to Disney that there are multiple weeks in a year and you don't have to release 2 things on the same week. That the option does exist. We don't have to drop a new season of Visions next week just cuz. Anyway.
Trying to stay focused here. You distracted me with more Star Wars.
But in all seriousness, though, that was a really fun day having all of it come out on the same day. That was it was really fun to have all of it. I really enjoyed that. So if they want to do it again, I won't complain. But with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this bonus episode, this second episode, this weekend edition of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We will, of course, be back at our usual time on Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Of course, you can tune into the pre-show beforehand if you get the link on Discord. So, and we most likely will just do one show next week. But you never know. you never know. Stranger things have happened. So we'll see everybody on Thursday or Friday, if that's when you listen to the shows on your podcast feeds. Ben, thank you so much for hosting this special edition of the pod.
Oh, this was phenomenal, as always. And like we do this always on Saturday nights. But yeah, very weird, but very awesome. And yeah, I love having the excuse to do a bonus episode during the week. Just great. Lots of stuff too. And but yeah, we'll have another few episodes of Andor, and who knows what else. They could just drop the whole season of Bad Batch next week on us and just blow our mind.
Yeah. Let's go.
Oh God, like don't give them any ideas. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So much Star Wars. That's a good problem. First world problems. Too much Star Wars.
That's the ultimate first world problem. Yeah. Hannah, thank you for also hosting and for being here tonight. Tell everybody what's going on with the Raeside.
Oh yeah, there's lots happening over the Raeside. Last week we had a massive countdown stream, which was so fun, and thank you if anyone tuned into that. This coming week, I like to make food and drinks and even Star Wars cocktails, and we got to see a Star Wars cocktail. So of course we are going to be making. I already forgotten the name of it. It was like squelch or something. Squelch something. It's it's some cocktail, but the cocktail that the Chandrillan Classic. We're going to be making that live on the Raeside. That is every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. We have great fun and great discussion over there. So but what a great day of discussion. It's been an absolute pleasure, and always bring back Bus Boy, Bus Man, Bus Guy. Bus Guy. He's not a boy.
Bus Dude.
Bus Guy. Yeah, bring back Bus Guy.
I'm desperately looking on Wikipedia to see if I can find the name of that drink, but it's not there. It's not there. Can't see it. Cannot see it. Catherine, thank you for joining us for this episode of the show. Let people know where they can check out your work and keep up with you online.
So you can find me at Catherine_Kneen, and during Andor, I'm talking to Star Wars Spelt Out weekly on a little season called I Want to Be Andored. So I watch the show at
I listen every week. It's great.
Watch the show about 6 p.m. Australian time. Josh and I record about 8:30, so I've watched it maybe like twice, maybe once and a half in between those times. So if you want some more just unadulterated gushing from me, that's awesome. Occasional very dark theories. That's the best place to catch me at the moment.
Nice. Well, check it out. Check out I Want to Be Andored over on the Star Wars Spelt Out feed. Check it out. It's great stuff. And as always, we'll remind you again, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. Subscribe. Punch the subscribe button, Chewy. Become a channel member if you want to support us financially. And bug Ben for the Discord link, although there's always a new one in your podcast descriptions, so that you can join up, get access to the pre-show, and just get involved in all the conversation. But that is it. That is going to do it for this week. We will be back on Thursday. We hope to have you all join us then for another terrific discussion of Andor. But for now, for the Star Wars Underworld, for Ben, for Hannah, for Catherine, and all of the other wonderful people here at the network, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.